Belarus allows police to use lethal weapons at mass protests.
Here's a summary of the article.
2-minute read. Moscow, Belarus police will now be permitted to use combat weapons in the streets if needed to respond to what the Interior Ministry described as increasingly radicalized mass anti-government protests. Police said they had detained 713 people at mass protests on Sunday in which security forces used water cannon and batons to break up crowds demanding a new presidential election. Tens of thousands of Belarusians have demonstrated every weekend since an August 9 election in which President Alexander Lukashenko was declared the winner. His opponents say the result was falsified. Lukashenko denies rigging the vote. The protests, which have shifted largely to Minsk, have become organized and extremely radical, the Interior Ministry said in a statement. In this regard, the Interior Ministry's employees and internal troops will not leave the streets and, if necessary, will use special equipment and military weapons, it said. Western countries have imposed sanctions against Belarusian officials they blame for election fraud and the abuse of protesters.
This post received a score of 5,600, with an upvote ratio of 97%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Murdering civilians in the street despite everybody having a cell phone usually will result in an insurrection.
They already should have Emo. As soon as he refused to step down when it was known as a fraudulent election. They need to group up and pool resources and start taking over whatever they can. And countries need to help them. 100%. This world disgusts me.
It's harder than you think. Remember this in a few months, America.
The point at which violent insurrection becomes justified is not an easy one to spot. The prospect of returning to normalcy at the next election is a powerful force against such actions, even when you can see a dictatorship is forming.
Even if violence breaks out, you better hope you have the foundation and support to see it through. You think you had it bad before you revolted against the corrupt government?
Listening to the Revolutions podcast, it's amazing how often these things sputter out, leaving those who joined them imprisoned, tortured, dead or in exile, how many false starts there are over sometimes decades before real and lasting change happens, and that's if the movement is not co-opted by a succession of despots as bad as, if not worse than, the original tyrant. That's saying nothing of the hardships of life as a member of an ongoing insurrection, always on the move, probably never clean like you want, no certainties in your future, etc.
It's interesting to see interviews of Hong Kong protesters last year saying that they already knew they're bound to lose, and are organizing and using the little technology they have anyways.
Authoritarian election rigging, and police brutality. The #1 recipe for civil war.
Remember Ukraine.
Remember US. People soon, maybe.
There is no US, only Mother Russia.
I wish people would stop blaming Russia for how hideously divided America is. Russia didn't force Americans to foster a significant population of greedy, xenophobic, superstitious, ignorant loons.
Russia has absolutely 100% divided America. This NY Times video illustrates exactly how Putin has masterminded the divisiveness. A must-watch. Because fighting a war on the battlefield is the most stupid and primitive way of fighting a war.
But the division was always there to begin with. Russia didn't create the divide, they just pointed out that absolutely horrible people make up a significant portion of the whole, and if they banded together to vote, they'd actually stand a good chance to get someone equally awful into power. Half the problem right now is that Americans are still looking for an outward cause rather than admit that this is how rotten to the core their society is. Because fighting an enemy is a lot easier than fixing themselves.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.